This is me, a month ago. Feeling cute, thinking, 65, looking pretty good, maybe I'll keep this photo. But then, 12 hours later, I looked in the mirror and, oh my God, who's that old hag? Just one dinner. That's all it took for my face to fast forward a decade. Then, what a relief. 2 weeks later, same eyes, same spot, and no filter. Before dinner, the next morning, and 2 weeks later. So what caused this recovery? Keep watching, and I'll tell you. And here's the crazy part. It turns out that what was showing up on my face, that's been happening inside my body for decades. A cluster of illnesses and conditions that, it turns out, they weren't just random chaos. And maybe the same thing's happening to you if you struggle with joint pain, migraines, depression, digestive issues, or other seemingly unrelated symptoms like I do. What if your body's been waving the same red flag that I've missed for years? In this video, I'm breaking down what 7 months on carnivore fixed and how 18 months back on carbs broke it all again. And stick around because at the end, I'll share this week's withdrawal from sugar and carb update. Spoiler alert, the addiction monster is trying to take us down. Hi, I'm Sharrell, 65, retired and living in beautiful Lake Chapala, Mexico with my husband Andy. For 45 years, I've relentlessly ridden my 100-pound weight loss roller coaster, speeding up and down the scale so fast that I've never weighed the same number for more than 3 days straight. Basically, spending my entire adult life fixated on my weight. Can you identify? Turns out, I may have been focused on the least important part of the picture, because I've recently learned that during that decades-long ride, while I was thinking it was all about the weight, there's been a much bigger problem developing. And everyone missed all my body's cries for help. Migraines that knocked me flat. Brain fog so thick I couldn't think straight. Rage episodes out of nowhere. Restless legs day and night. Irritability that made me hate myself. Allergies I'd never had before. Psoriasis, eczema, dandruff. No sleep, sluggishness, split fingers that I've had on and off since my 40s. And I discussed that saga of treatments in this video. But they were clearly one of my body's biggest cries for help. And here's what's maddening. No one ever connected the dots. Every annual physical, I was told, "You're fine, looking great." And as the years passed, more doctors were treating more symptoms, but things were just getting worse. But that's because they were treating the branches while ignoring that the tree was burning up from the inside out. Before we left the US, my doctor said everything looks great. I even had my throat scoped because I had acid reflux so bad, and he told me that all of this is just part of getting older. But 7 months on carnivore, every single thing was gone, all of it. So if it's just getting older, why did it vanish on carnivore? We've got a psychiatrist for our mood, a rheumatologist for our joints, a GI doctor for our gut, and each gives us tests and pills, but nobody's looking at the whole person. And the GP like mine, he tells us, you're just getting older. So meanwhile, our body, it's on fire with systemic inflammation. And here's what the research is showing us. And I want you to know this is documented science. I have links below, and it's really starting to paint a clear picture. When we consistently eat a pro-inflammatory diet like processed carbs, added sugars, refined carbs, and most seed oils, we're not just affecting our weight. We're potentially influencing a whole cascade of health issues throughout our bodies. Let me walk you through what the studies are finding, because It's honestly pretty eye-opening. Starting with our brains and mental health, research is now showing a strong connection between inflammatory diets and depression, anxiety, cognitive decline, and dementia. And there's compelling evidence linking this way of eating to increased risk of Alzheimer's. Your brain, it turns out, is incredibly sensitive to inflammation. When it comes to our cardiovascular system, science is showing consistent links to heart disease, high blood pressure, and stroke risk. The inflammatory pathways seem to directly affect how our blood vessels function. With metabolic health, the connections to obesity, type 2 diabetes, and metabolic syndrome are well established. This is probably the area where we have the most robust research. For autoimmune and inflammatory conditions, studies suggest that these diets contribute or worsen conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, psoriasis, and MS. And it makes sense when you think about it. We're essentially adding fuel to an already inflammatory fire. With digestive health, research points to connections with IBS and inflammatory bowel diseases like Crohn's. There's also emerging research on intestinal permeability, sometimes called leaky gut, though this area is still being studied. With joint and bone health, there are links to osteoarthritis and gout, where inflammation plays a key role. When it comes to cancer, this is where I think it gets really interesting. We know that cancer cells have a high demand for glucose, and studies are increasingly showing associations between inflammatory diets, especially those high in sugar and high fructose corn syrup, and certain cancers, particularly colorectal, breast, prostate, and pancreatic cancers. In fact, there was groundbreaking research published in Nature just this past December that showed high fructose corn syrup actually accelerates cancer tumor growth via the liver. The study found that dietary fructose promotes tumor growth in animal models of melanoma, breast cancer, and cervical cancer. The research suggests that these high carb diets and high fructose diets may contribute to cancer development and progression. And we're starting to hear some doctors actually say the words, sugar feeds cancer. And if that's true, it's truly scary. And then there's a whole cluster of other conditions that studies are linking to inflammatory diets or worsening them, like chronic fatigue syndrome, PCOS, non-alcoholic fatty liver, acne and other skin disorders, migraines, and asthma symptoms. And here's what really gets me. In all my years of doctor visits for a lot of these issues, not one freaking time did anyone look at what was on my plate as a cause to all these issues. Yeah, they might hand me that generic obesity pamphlet on the way out when I was fat, but when I was skinny, nothing was said. And like I said, no conversations about how my food choices might be connected to all these issues popping up. Just, you're getting older. But you know what? The science is there. The connections are documented. And this information, it's not making it to where it needs to go, to the people who need to hear it most, and to the doctors who are treating them. And speaking of connecting the dots, I created something I wish somebody had given to me 30 years ago. And I think it may help you discuss your symptoms with your doctors at a future visit, or at least start the conversation. I titled it, The Body Warning System Your Doctor Never Taught You, 3 checklists every woman over 50 needs. It's a free 12-page guide, and I packed it with information and links and checklists that will help you recognize if your body is screaming at you like mine was through inflammation symptoms, sugar addiction, and signs of conditions like lipedema and lymphedema, which I was diagnosed with, and doctors miss it completely for the most part. So just drop guide in the comment below and I will get you the link. And here's the part that almost broke me. In my 30s, 40s, and 50s, I was told that my physical symptoms were probably psychosomatic because I was so depressed, and the depression was probably what was causing the pain. And though that can happen, it feels like a total dismissal because it puts the responsibility on me that it's my fault, it's my mind's fault, instead of being a biological cause, and that really made the depression worse. I was a good patient, but the system I trusted, it didn't see the whole picture. But then something finally happened that changed everything. And I mean everything. The breakthrough didn't come from a doctor's office. It came from 7 months of eating nothing but meat. And every single symptom disappeared like a freaking miracle. But my addict brain got to work and convinced me that just one anniversary celebration Costco cheesecake is not gonna hurt anything because look at what I'd already done. And success deserves recognition. So back in the carb ditch we went for 18 months. And surprise, surprise, every single symptom returned. That alone is proof enough for me. But then the problem became, since I'm a raging sugar and processed carb addict, how do I get us out of a ditch we seem to love to live in? And thankfully, that's when the final wake-up call came knocking. A month ago, the morning after dinner with our neighbor, waking up to the hag in the mirror with split and bleeding fingers. And that kind of acute swelling, especially around the eyes, it's called angioedema. It's a sign of a possible significant food allergy or at least intolerance, like histamine intolerance. And you know what? That makes sense because I'd done that blood test for food allergies back in 2019, and gluten was at the very top of the list, labeled extreme. But my old friend denial and living in Lili land, well, I'm sure you know how hard it is to pass up Italian food, especially pasta and garlic bread. I mean, who doesn't love it, right? Anyway, when I got the results of that test back in 2019, I tried keto, but it didn't work because for sugar and processed carb addicts like me, it's not the answer. I explain exactly why in this video here. I tried other elimination diets too, but I kept failing because as a hardcore addict, and I didn't know that at the time, desserts are my downfall. For me, the answer is eating as close to carnivore as possible, because when I do, the results are staggering. 2 years ago, when we did it, within a month, the chronic joint pain I'd had for the past 5 years was absolutely gone. The acid reflux I'd had scoped was gone. The migraines I'd had since puberty were gone. The heavy blanket of depression that had followed me most of my life, it was starting to lift in a way that medication had never done. Mental clarity made a visit, and I was meeting myself for the first time. And although the addict voice was begging for carbs, and it never went away, it did get quieter. So here I am now, committed to sharing every step with you, because that's how I am going to succeed. I know my journey isn't over, and it's important. I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist. I'm just a person who did start feeling better when I took control and became an expert on my own body. So if you're struggling with chronic symptoms no one can explain, don't stop searching. Don't let anyone make you feel like it's all in your head or it's just you getting older, because your body could be sending you signals every day, begging for help. You need to learn the language. And if you've ever connected a food to a symptom, drop your story in the comments so we can create space to learn from each other on this journey. Okay, so it's time for my weekly update on what's been happening on this sugar and carb withdrawal journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly. When it comes to sleep, both Andy and I have hardly slept at all this week, and when we do, it's very intermittent. As for mood, both of us are experiencing real depression for the first time in 2 years. And Andy, usually chipper, is very irritable and snappish. And for the first time in a long time, we had an actual angry argument over nothing. And I'm certain it's due to sugar and processed carb withdrawal. In fact, I'm keeping a sugar and carb withdrawal journal, and I'm going to do either a 30 or 45-day tracking video on how it plays out, either day by day or week by week once we're on the other side. So subscribe so you don't miss it. On the plus side, we have managed to claw ourselves into a routine, and that's from using repetitive meals. And the promise I made here 2 weeks ago to cut out all snacking, which we did. 2 years ago, when we lost weight, we were eating twice a day. But since we've both completely given up snacks, we have had to shift to 3 times a day. But you know what? Eating 3 meals a day is keeping us from making worse choices, like eating a bag of fake pork rinds in 2 days, or splitting a 10-person cheesecake and wolfing that down in 48 hours. Right now, we're having a single repetitive meal, something that it might not work for you. You might need 3 or 4 rotating meals. But for how deeply in the carb ditch we've been for 18 months, it's working. Pre-made burger patties topped with ketchup and mayo. And I know, ketchup is still feeding my sugar gremlin, but I'm staying in keto, 15 total carbs a day. Check out this video where I explain exactly why I think repetitive meals, they're the key to success for sugar and processed carb addicts. As far as numbers, this morning I weighed 146.4, and that's down 1.6 from last week. That means I have 36.4 pounds to go to my goal. For the first time in my life, when I hit that goal, I'm not going to bounce up. I am vowing it right here to you. And this is what my macros look like. So I am low on protein, which I will address when the inflammation is reduced, so I can add eggs or cheese or pork. And even though I'm losing weight, I'm almost 300 calories over what the TDEE calculator says I need for a 200-calorie weight loss deficit. So I have some wiggle room there to keep up the 3 meals for now as a bridge to get us through. My fingers, they're still getting worse. Hopefully that's going to turn around. I keep saying that every week because even when it turns around, it's 3 to 4 months before they're going to heal. And my biggest win, and I know I sound repetitive, but it is the biggest win, I'm being honest, it's getting on the scale every day, and it's filming these videos because they're keeping me out of la-la land. Next week, I'm going to dig into a really sore subject because I believe it's why we stayed stuck in the carb ditch for 18 months instead of just 3 or 4. Imagine this. You spent the past year on keto, transitioning to carnivore for 7 months, and you lost 100 pounds. You feel unstoppable. Then you plan one celebratory cheat meal for your wedding anniversary, and everything crumbles. Not just the diet, but your sense of self-worth. And worse, the coach you hired to help you recover from the sugar addiction and get you on track starts shaming you over and over in every single Zoom group coaching session. And let me be clear, this is not going to be a video next week about blame. It's me talking about what shame did to me so we can all better understand addiction, failure, humiliation, and clawing our way back. Because this channel, it's about being supportive. No shame, no judgment. I am convinced that's the way we're going to succeed together. If this video opened your eyes, hit that like button and subscribe, because on this channel, I'm sharing everything I learn while I get off this 100-pound weight loss roller coaster forever. The good, the bad, and the shocking truths our doctors aren't telling us. And before you go, don't forget to grab my free 12-page guide with the checklists. I truly believe it'll help you connect the dots between your symptoms and what your body is really trying to tell you. Just drop guide in the comments below, and I'll get you the link. Thanks for tuning in, and I invite you to join me because I know together we can succeed, one day at a time and one meal at a time. See you next week, and if you want to learn more about my journey, watch this video next.